with Beacons N94. We're going to get started in just a minute here. I want to let a few more people who might be running a minute late come on into the room, but we're super excited. All of you who are here, who are ready on time, thank you so much for being here. Drop us a hello in the chat, a wave if you would like, or you can let us know where you're calling in from. I'm based here in Minneapolis. I'll introduce myself in just a minute. And we have David and Colleen, who I know are based in LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Just maybe 30 more seconds. We might be a few more people in the room here. Don't be shy in the chat, you guys. We want to hear from you. Thank you so much to everybody who pre-submitted Q&A. Some really good questions in there that we're super excited to get to. And it seems like we might be kind of at the number we're going to be at because I don't see a ton of more people trickling in at the moment. So we will go ahead and get started. And this is being recorded. So if you come in late or you miss something, you can always go back. We will have that available later. So officially, hello, welcome. And we are so excited to kick off Ask a Manager. I am Isabel. I am the Beacons community manager. Many of you may know me from the Beacons community space. And one of the amazing things that I get to do here at Beacons is host these webinars where we talk to different and interesting people about all aspects of creator life. And today we are super excited to have David and Colleen of 9.4 with us. They have been early supporters of the Beacons Manager product, and we are so grateful that they are joining us here today. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys and let you each say maybe a little brief introduction about yourself before we officially jump into answering some of those questions. So David, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, Isabel. My name's David Rosemon. I'm COO and Talent Manager at 9.4 Entertainment. First off, excuse if my background's a little loud right now. I'm taking one of my clients to lunch after this for their birthday, so I had to take it mobily, but really happy to be a part of this. Huge supporter of Beacons and what you guys are doing, and just a lover of the creator economy and all things creators. So really happy to talk to you guys today. And if there are any questions that I can answer and any way I can be of service, that would be great. I'll talk a little about my background, but first I want to let Colleen introduce herself as well.
Yeah, thanks, David. Like he said, I'm Colleen. I'm a coordinator and a manager here at 9.4 as well. Obviously, as Isabel said, we've been longtime supporters of Beacons, so we're really excited to hear from all of you guys and answer your questions. I guess I can talk a bit about my background. Been managing talent kind of independently, basically since college. I went to school for entertainment, and then I did work at a couple of agencies in music touring. But then I've gone over to management full-time, working with creators, a lot of people in the digital space across a bunch of new verticals, which has been really exciting. Awesome learning opportunity for me too. So yeah, really excited to meet some new creators today.
Yeah, and a little about my background. I went to school for advertising, but I've spent my whole career in entertainment. I was originally on the traditional side in agencies as well, but I was pretty early on the digital wave because I'm a big believer, and I just love, consuming digital content, especially in video form. So I started off as a scout, moved my way up to being a manager, briefly had my own company, and I've worked with creators for about 5-6 years now. And I'm really happy to be a part of 9.4 and what we're building, and excited to tell you guys about it today as well.
Perfect. Thank you both so much for those wonderful introductions. I just know how much experience you guys have in the space, and I'm so excited for our creators to be able to learn from you. So I think I will let you guys kind of jump in and just start with some of the points that you prepared to talk to creators about what they need to know from a manager.
So Colleen, do you want to set it up and then we can just go from there?
Yeah, well, one thing that we wanted to talk about was that we find is really important is identifying the right time to bring on a manager. And I think that's really tricky in digital, especially because it's kind of different for everyone. But David, do you want to share some advice on that?
Of course. I think there's the who, what, when, where, and why of management, but I think when is the most important thing. Um, I've said in the past there are a couple of times ways to know when you as a creator are ready to bring on a manager. I say the most clear, obvious indication is when it's becoming too much hassle and taking too much time away from you doing your creating to work on the business side, right? So if you're spending hours a day responding to emails or planning out your next video and your schedule or your business side or, doing your taxes, if that's taking so much of your time that it's taking away from what you're actually supposed to be doing, which is being the creative and making the content, I think that's one of the number one signs. Um, I think the second thing is when you start getting negotiations that you feel like you're not quite equipped for. There's certain people who are just inherently very good business people, but there are a lot of tricks to the trade where having someone who does this full time can really benefit you more than you know. One of the hardest things to know is if you're getting competitive rates. And you can always ask your mutuals or your friends, hey, what did you get? I got this offer. But it's very different when you have a manager who knows the entire landscape of, oh, this brand is usually pitching around this much. I think that's a really good way to know that, hey, maybe I'm getting negotiations where the amount of money I might be giving to the manager is worth the extra amount of revenue they can get me. So I think volume is really the number one thing. When it starts getting to be too much, where it's taking away from you doing your job as the creative, I think that's the number one sign in my eye.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when the admin gets too heavy and distracts from your ability to create and spend time doing that, then that's definitely a good indicator. And then similarly, like what David said, I think when the negotiations get overwhelming, which oftentimes that is very overwhelming to creators and creative people in general, it's a good time to start looking for someone to help with that lift.
Yeah, I mean, Colleen, how common is it that on one deal we have 100 email thread?
Yeah.
It's like that takes a lot of time that I don't really think it's fair for the creator to be spending their time working on when, you know, you can have someone on your team who can be dedicated to doing that, and they'll take the time to send all 100 emails to make sure you get the best possible deal.
Yeah,
Ooh,
exactly.
another great way to know is legal things. When you get to the point where, hey, I might need to bring on a lawyer to handle this specific negotiation or contract, that's something that you can get in a lot of hot water trying to do yourself, especially for bigger deals. When it comes to redlining, you don't really know exactly what you're agreeing to. Having a proper legal team that a management company can provide you is another huge benefit.
I want to jump in with a question from one of the creators here. And I usually have a feature on Crowdcast where I can actually put the question that we're answering on the screen. And for some reason today, the answer button is just not there. So if you are used to seeing me pop questions up onto the screen for our presenters to answer, that is why I am not doing that today, but I'm just going to read them. This is from Jada, and it actually got 5 upvotes. So there are other people who want to know this as well. As a beginning influencer, what's the right price point or commission split to start with when working with a manager?
Ooh, that's tough. There's not like a standard answer, but I think the best answer I can give you is it really is depending on the services that the management company is providing. Especially as a beginner, my real advice is I don't believe most beginners should have managers. I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice. I know that sounds weird coming from a manager, but let's say there are 3 standard rates. There's 10% commissions, 15% commissions, and 20% commissions. Almost all companies are either 20 or 10. 15 is incredibly rare. And normally 10% is a purely transactional agency style relationship where, hey, I have a deal. You want to work on this one specific deal? I'm going to take 10%. That's how WME, CAA, all of the traditional agencies work. And that's kind of it. 20% is a much more encompassing business relationship. With us, all of our clients at 9-4 are managed exclusively. So we're touching pretty much everything in their lives, from their scheduling, their planning. If they have a trip, we're going to make them a full itinerary. All of their deals we're negotiating for them. We're helping them on the legal side. It really depends on how much value you feel like you're getting from the manager. But to be honest, as a beginning creator, I really think learning the basic skills of being able to do things on your own before it gets to that overwhelming point, I think is going to help you a lot more in the long run. And giving away that responsibility and that revenue early on, I really think would be detrimental. So I really recommend very few early creators to get managers.
I think that's so important. I appreciate that transparency. We have creators of all sizes here at Beacons, and that sort of when question that you're touching on here is an important one. I know we did already discuss it. I just want to acknowledge, I think it was Alejandra who said, when in my journey should I start looking for a manager? So we didn't attribute that to you because you guys were already planning to talk about it, but we did jump in on that and talk about the when a little bit there. There are so many good questions here. Do you guys want to maybe hit like one or two of your other talking points before we dive into these? You want to just keep going with creator cues?
Let's do one more talking point and then we'll take some more questions. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I think our second bullet point that we had discussed will probably come up naturally. So maybe we should skip to how to assess your audience and achieve long-term goals with your manager. I think that's a pretty important one that might not get asked intuitively.
Colleen, I think you got this one.
Okay, great. So yeah, I would say a big part of what we do at 9-4 and just what your manager should do in general is getting a very good understanding of your audience, of your demographic on all platforms as well. It's not necessarily always the same. You're not going to have the same demographic on YouTube as you might on Twitch, as you might on Instagram and so forth. But I think looking into the back end of who is watching your content, understanding those people and their purchasing habits, their buying power. If, they're on the younger side, a lot of people, ages 15 to 22 are watching your content. They might not have the same purchasing power as someone in like the 28 to 34 range, if that were higher. And then using that to understand what makes the most sense to either like brands to partner with, things to integrate into your content, I think is very important, because having a manager and moving forward with things like brand deals and partnerships and sponsorships, it should be important to you as a creator to make sure that it feels really authentic. And you don't want your audience to be taken aback hearing you talk about something that they've never heard of or that is not relevant to them. So I think also when you do get a manager or when you're looking for a manager, I would say that's very important and sort of a green flag is if they're asking questions about your demographic and they want to make sure that you understand it, what the goal is, how you can capitalize on it, and how you can use it to build a bigger brand and kind of make sure that your name extends beyond social media and beyond the digital landscape.
I think that's really great, Colleen. The one thing I want to add is I don't know what level other creators are at here, but just for the super beginners, when you're talking about demographics, that's the number one most important metric in terms of brand deals and opportunities, and that encompasses the age of your audience, the location of your audience, and basically your split between where they are and how old they are, and that's really, really important. Location matters a lot too. Many brands, for example, only sell their products in America because they can't ship internationally. So one of the most important metrics you can look for on your own socials is the percentage of your audience that is in the United States. I've seen so many creators who don't even get that many views get great rates because they have 70-80% US audience. And I've seen creators who get unbelievable views get really low rates because they have a 20 to 30% US audience. So that's just a little bit of an insider tip of things to look at.
And a super easy way to know about your audience is to use a Beacons Media Kit, where you can find all of your demographics and things like that with just a few clicks. Okay, so my start answering button is back here. I don't know where it was a few minutes ago, but I have the ability to pop these questions up on the screen now. I just wanted to do this one because I feel like we just kind of addressed that, like what are the services, provided by managers. But if there's anything else you wanted to just delineate on that front.
Yeah, Alejandra with another great question. Good job. So brands obviously is the number one thing. Then the second thing I would say is really working on your long-term goals and scheduling, right? So if your goal is, hey, I want to grow from 100,000 to 200,000 next year, we would work together to map out a plan, maybe a posting schedule. We look deep into the analytics of all of our creators to say, hey, the last 4 or 5 videos have performed this well. Maybe we can do more of this, less of that. Another thing that we do here specifically at 9-4 is we work on actually building out other revenue streams with our creators. So whether that be the basic stuff like merchandise, but we try to do more specific brands. So we have a beautiful company called Habit, which is a tea company that we launched with one of our creators. Parker, who is the CEO of the company, also works exclusively with them to help out with their flavors, their scheduling, helping them to get into actual, the Walmarts and in person of the world, and building that business as well. So a real good manager should basically be involved with everything that you do in relation to your YouTube or TikTok or Twitch account. Like, there's so many micro things that are required to really make you the biggest creator you can be. Oh, another big thing is staffing. Let's say you need to add an editor or a thumbnail designer. A good manager should be able to connect you with people. I've even done interviews for my clients. They were looking for assistants, and we'll get 100 applicants, and I'll sit there and interview every single one. Anything you can do to help that creator be the best version of themselves is something that a good manager should do.
Yeah. I would also add that there's a good amount of strategizing, like David was saying, to figure out the best way to go about like schedule and posting and everything, to also like maintain a level of sanity and mental health for the creator so that they can continue creating content. I think that's like a big thing that we focus on at 9-4, which I'm super proud of, is just like making sure our creators are happy and healthy and on a schedule and a posting cadence that is sustainable to them.
I want to add one more thing. I think that was a great point. And also, a good manager is a bit of a therapist sometimes. If you have a good relationship, my clients, I feel like they all feel like they can call me out of the blue and talk to me about whatever, because as Colleen said, the mental health aspect of being a creator is one of the most important parts. Burnout is extremely common and very serious, and a good manager should be monitoring to help anything they can to take stress off in as many ways as possible.
We talk about burnout and mental health in the Beacons community a lot, actually, and it's been coming up a good bit lately. So I know that's top of mind. And yeah, I wouldn't have thought of like a manager also as kind of a mental health support person, but I love that. So Colleen, a few minutes ago, you mentioned about certain things being green flags in looking for a manager. And we got this great question here from Tristan, who said, what are the red flags that a creator should look out for when talking to talent managers? So I wanted to kick that one to you.
Okay. Interesting. I would say, so my background, most of my background has actually been working with musicians, and I've just recently in the last year transitioned to digital. So I've seen, unfortunately, my fair share of corrupt music managers, but I know they exist in the digital space, of course. I would say this might seem a little weird, but I would say if they are promising like too much too fast, that can definitely be a red flag. Like, there's only so much we can do, especially in the beginning. It should be a relationship. Sorry, there was a leaf blower outside. It should be a relationship that both sides intend to pour into and build together. I think that if a manager is saying that they can get you all this great stuff and these amazing rates and brand deals right up front, that can be something to be a little cautious for. I'm trying to think of some other red flags. David, do you have any top of mind?
Yeah, I got a couple of digital specific ones.
Yeah.
Long-term contracts. I think anyone who refuses, like they want you to sign a year-long contract, and if you say, can we do 6 months, can we do 3 months to test it out, and they say no, I think that's a massive red flag. There are a lot of legal implications with that in general, but more than anything, I think that's something to really worry about. And then on a personal level, I would say always ask any manager how many clients they personally work with. Management is a very personal job, and I think it's nearly impossible for you to be a good manager with more than 30 clients absolute max. I think at that point, you're signing up for something that's going to be very transactional, and that's fine in certain cases, but you need to be very aware of what you're signing up for. The final and most important thing is if the person that you're talking to is a salesperson and not the actual manager. One of the worst things you'll see in digital is people will sign a contract with someone that gets to know them and they feel confident with them, and then they kind of just get passed off. And then the person they do most of their work with, they don't have that same level of relationship. I think that's a mistake that a lot of lesser management companies make. And I think if the person that you're going to be talking to isn't the person that is the person signing you on, that's a big red flag that I would stay away from.
I would also add, just make sure that they like your content. I think it's okay to put them through a series of questions that might, like, for them feel like a little bit of a test, but if they are a true fan of yours, it won't. I think that's really important, is like understanding who you're going after from a manager standpoint, and then also making sure that this person who's inquiring about managing you really understands your goals and understands your personality, especially with UGC. I think it's very personal. So it's good to make sure that they're truly a fan before anything else and understand your content.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing to that because I think it's an excellent point. One of the best questions you can ask is, and maybe not on the first call, but before you sign, definitely ask, hey, what do you think I could be doing better? And if the person who's supposed to be your manager is not willing to challenge you or give you any real advice, they're just trying to, trying to think of a nice way to say this. If they're trying to like kiss your butt and make you feel like you're the best creator ever and you can't do anything wrong, this person isn't going to do a good job of helping you get to that next level. You want someone who can give you constructive criticism from the beginning and establish that relationship. So just touching on what Colleen said, that's a great point.
Those are all so smart and helping us all get smarter about it every day. Love that. On the flip side, this is from Jewel. What exactly do creator managers look for in creators that are seeking management? So as much as the creator evaluates the manager, we know the managers are evaluating the creator for a fit as well. I'm wondering sort of maybe both generally and like personally for you guys, like, what are you looking for in creators?
I feel like David and I could say one word on the count of three. The main thing. It's definitely originality. That's super important. I feel like that's probably an obvious answer. Originality is definitely something that we look for. And then also someone who has a potential to build out from where they are right now. They have potential to grow. They're across multiple platforms. They're consistently posting. Things like that are all a recipe for growth. So those are things we look for as well.
100%. And piggybacking on that, when she says originality, the number one thing that I personally look for, and Colleen knows this better than anyone, I want someone who creates content that cannot be replicated easily. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as it's hard for someone else to redo, because there's so many copycats online that if your stick is, oh, I just do these one type of challenge, or I just smile and look pretty. Like, you have to have something that is unique to what you do. For example, one of the client that I'm going to get lunch with after this, she makes these amazing videos, but every single one of them is based on an event that she goes to. And then she has a really unique job of like recapping them. But if you wanted to make what she's doing, you'd have to spend thousands of hours and dollars going to every single event that she goes to, and you'd have to have the charisma to make the recaps as entertaining as possible. So I think really being truly unique and original and being the best at what you do specifically, no matter how niche it is what I would always look for when I look to sign a new creator.
This is a sort of similar vein of question. How do I stand out when I'm like going to a brand for collaboration? Do you think it's a similar answer, like that originality is what really makes a brand interested in you?
To be honest, brands only care about money. So brands They look at your viewership, they look at your demographic, and they say, can I get a return on my investment investing in this creator? Brands, they're just not that personable. They're kind of soulless corporations. So no, they genuinely, unless you have something truly, truly, truly unique, that means you're the only person they can go to for this one specific deal. Normally, brands are just looking at numbers.
Yeah, I would say a good way to stand out is also to like come prepared with a concept. If it's a brand that you want to work with, I think that kind of cuts out a few steps in the beginning of discussing whether or not they're even willing to work with you. They're probably then going to ask for a concept anyway of how you plan to partner with them. So if you have that already, I would say then that definitely can expedite your place in line for working with a brand.
I don't want to put you guys on the spot too much with this, but talking about numbers and brands, caring about money and looking at reach. Somebody did ask in particular, do you have a threshold like for signing folks at 9.4, or just I'll expand that a little bit and say, like, do most agencies have thresholds in terms of numbers for signing creators, or how does that work?
I can take this one. Two answers. So the thresholds really are the agencies. Certain agencies are all about volume. So you'll see agencies, like I used to work at Select Management Company, amazing company, but they have 400 creators, and they have like 35 managers. So their threshold is going to be very different. We're a much smaller boutique agency, so we kind of feel like every signee needs to count. But for me personally, it's not so much about you have to be big enough for me to sign. It's you have to have the potential to get really big. One of my clients, I signed when they had, I think, 16,000 total social following, and today they have like 450,000. But it was very clear that they were going to get there. There was a client I worked with recently, really briefly. He had like 60, 70,000 when I signed him, and he has like 5.2 million now. So it's much more about identifying talent. That's what our job is to do. Find someone who's going to be big, not necessarily sign someone who's huge. Because to be honest, there's a point where someone's so big that they kind of become unsignable anyway. Either they're already signed by another agency, or it would basically take so much for us to actually get them to sign. It wouldn't really be beneficial. It's like if you can get to 10 million followers on your own, it's hard to even make an argument that you really need a manager at that point. So yeah, it's not just about being big, it's about being good.
So maybe you want to sign with 9.4 and then you'll be the next 5 million follower creator. I think this one's very related to what you were just saying. If you're looking for certain characteristics that are going to like identify that talent and somebody that you think is going to make it, Adam has asked, what are the characteristics that you recognize that like contribute to success and longevity for creators?
That's a really good question. I would say something that we look for longevity is like follower retention. I think it's easy to like have a massive moment of virality and kind of blow up. But a lot of our creators have been doing what they do specifically in their niche for so long that a lot of people have been following them for so long. I mean, we rep people who've been on YouTube for 17 years since they were kids and have gone through rebrands and name changes and brands that they've dropped, clothing or consumables. And I think that people, if, you can always assess from the comments, but like, I think viewers that have stayed around and that have followed their journey for a long time is like a great characteristic to have, because that retention of those followers and of those fans is almost arguably just as important as gaining new followers.
I totally agree. The two more that I would add, one is being unique, which I already discussed, but I think the biggest characteristic I look for is passion. Being a creator is not like a regular job, right? Like being a manager is kind of different too, because I have to do work whenever my creators need me to. But, if you're an accountant, you log in, you sign in, you check out at 5. Being a creator is really a lifestyle. And I look for people that if they were not on video, if they weren't getting paid to do what they're doing as a creator, they would still do it all the time, because you really have to work so much more to be successful, especially at the beginning, than a traditional job requires. So if you're not truly passionate about the content you're making, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna get bored and stop, or even worse, you're gonna keep going and keep doing this content, and your audience is going to see that the passion isn't there. Your numbers are gonna drop, then you're gonna be sad, and it's like an endless loop. So you have to truly love the content you're making, whether it's performing well or not.
I'm going to pop up a few of the questions that we've already answered, just so I can clear them out of the queue here and make sure that I'm seeing questions we haven't answered up at the top. This is a new one, I think. What is the best way for creators who are seeking representation to find a manager or an agency to do so? Well, you're here today, so you're taking a great step, and I'll let the experts add anything.
That's a good question.
Nice, yeah.
I've never really thought about it in reverse, right? I'm always looking for creators. I mean, at this point in the creator economy, it's really not hard to find people. I mean, between like VidCon, TwitchCon, I mean, there's so many events you could just go to, and they're just prowling with people who would love to represent you. I mean, just look up digital talent agency. I mean, there'll be hundreds of results now. Go to the Beacon's manager list. Go. I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, these people want to represent you. So I would say there are a lot of online tools. And honestly, I feel like Isabel would be the most helpful, because I feel like that's the kind of thing they're doing at Beacons.
I was hoping for an organic plug of the Beacon's top creator agencies page. I just dropped a link to that in the chat. And you can always, come and talk to us in the creator community here at Beacons, and we can get you connected. Let's see.
Also, I would say talk to, your fellow creators, especially ones that you look up to, or that make similar content or might have a similar following. Definitely just try to start that conversation.
That's a great point. We're sort of off of the questions, I think, that are like all kind of connected and related to each other. We have a couple of like niche questions that are a little more specific. I like this one. It seems like there's a lot of ageism out there. Do you guys particularly work with any older creators, or do you know of any that who's out there combating ageism? I know that there have been some like pretty famous grandma TikTokers these days, haven't there?
We just signed MVG, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say I think there is a lot of ageism, and that comes from like maybe some of the bigger agencies that are just trying to like nab up anything that Gen Z is ferociously watching. But we actually don't really have that approach. I think we want to make sure that our roster is diverse in all ways, and I think age is obviously a big part of that. So as long as you are good at what you do, it's unique content, relatable, your following is loyal, we don't consider age very much.
And I would honestly say, I actually think ageism is less big of a deal than it's spoken about in the community, for the reason I brought it before. Brands just want to make money. They don't really care. If you have the audience that they want and you're getting the good numbers. I mean, all of the biggest social media creators today, other than TikTok, right? All the people who are like the Jake Pauls of the world, who just have like full social followings, they're all like 30 something now. I mean, like they're kind of getting up there, and there's a whole new.
Old.
Well, I mean, from a creator perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people have been doing this since they're 14. So when you're 30 now, that's a full career that these people have had. So I think it's really changing, and I think it's much more about finding managers that are looking to do deals in pretty much in the demographics that you have. I mean, the guy we just signed, MBG, he's like 56, something like that. But he makes great content, and he's a really good guy. So it's much more about finding the right fit, and I wouldn't let ageism stop you.
That's a great one. Another pretty specific question here, which is from Liza. What advice do you have struggling with the balance about speaking out about current events, but fear of not wanting to stay silent? This is I think kind of you lose if you do and you lose if you don't. It can feel like there's really no way to win in that situation, but I don't know if you guys have had to give advice to any creators on that recently.
Ooh. Okay. All right. So here's some real advice. The internet is a place where any opinion you have, someone will dislike. Everyone acknowledges that. So I would say I only recommend my clients speaking up about things they are truly passionate about. Never let your followers or society make you take a stance on something that you are not educated about and you are not passionate about, because people will challenge your opinions and you will need to defend them. Now, should you not speak about something you're passionate about because you're going to lose followers? No. Followers are not that important, one. And two, for every person who doesn't like your opinion, there's someone who does, right? So if you're very passionate and believe in what you're saying, I always recommend people say it, but I never recommend people speaking about things that don't really matter to them, because there will be backlash no matter what you say. That's just how the internet goes. So that's probably the best answer I could give. Colleen, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say, like David said, obviously make sure it's really important to you and something that you are really passionate about, you're willing to defend. And also, I think with everything going on, it can feel a little like silly or trivial to be like, oh, I have to post my like little TikTok. I think that's like really challenging for a lot of creators right now. I actually am working with an artist who has a release coming out this Friday, and we have a whole social media plan in place to promote it. And she's like, I don't want to promote, my content, my music without addressing this first. And so I was like, okay, well, let's sit down and let's figure out a plan how we can organically address it. That's, actionable. That's not just like ranting. That's not just another opinion in a super saturated place. And then, if you feel like you've kind of done your part there, you can move forward with your content. But obviously, it is definitely very rough waters to navigate right now. So I would say, like David said, make sure you're very passionate about it. Make sure you're prepared to defend it. And then also, if you are, there's definitely no harm in speaking out about it, making a statement, and then continuing with your normal posting schedule and coming back to it even with updates.
Yeah, this might reveal how old I am, but when I was in college, I had a professor who always said, if you're thinking about doing something illegal, ask yourself if you would be proud if it was on the front page of the national newspaper. So like it's kind of like what are you willing to stand for, right? Like you might catch some flack for certain things, or you will probably catch flack for anything. If you're a creator, like somebody will find a way to say something about it. But if you stand behind it and you're proud of it and you want people to know that that's your position, then it might feel right for you to make that decision to address it. Thank you guys for those perspectives. Slight pivot, really specific question. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know if you guys do. The average time frame to deliver a UGC video. Brands want video turnaround within 1 to 2 days.
I mean, I'm not a big UGC fan, but I would just say, I actually think that's pretty realistic. I would just say when you're working with the brand, you really need to establish your timeline. If it's going to take you a week, say I need a week. And I think, honestly, that's what a good manager is going to do for you. And if you're not at that point yet where a manager is going to work, I do think making it clear from the beginning that even if they say we need 1 to 2 days, say, no, I need 5 to 7 days to make content that's to my standard for my audience. And brands tend to be a lot more understanding than you think.
That's a good answer. Nice. I like a succinct answer. Questions. Sometimes we get questions that I think are yes or no questions, and those are really fun on these. Just yes. This is a longer one, but I think what it boils down to is there's a lot of platforms out there. And it's kind of overwhelming if you're trying to be super present and engaged and build a following on all of them. I see that it gets cut off here, but the bottom of this is, how do you suggest creators strategize what platforms to choose and create a content plan for focusing on those?
I'll start with this one, Colleen, and you can jump in.
Mhm.
My advice actually is don't try to work every platform, get really big on one. The most success I've seen is it's very, unless you're a pure personality creator, right? If people just like you for you, you're just that quirky and that unique and that fun, it doesn't matter what you post because people are going to like it. Most creators, especially with how saturated the market is, should focus on getting as big as possible on one platform. And then once you're really big, you bring on a manager, and then you'll start working on a multi-platform um, strategy. And that strategy is usually how do we get market share on this other platform by porting the audience over with unique content. Starting off trying to make TikToks and shorts and YouTube videos and stream, I genuinely think is a bad idea. Find one you're really good at, become the best at that, expand from there. That's my general advice.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say pour into what's working already, and then you can always drive traffic from there.
So pouring into what's working already, focusing, growing to the biggest you can on the platform where you already have the most traction, maybe, if that's how you're trying to choose where to get started. That's a great one. We answered this one pretty much like 10, 15, or 20%, and you get something different for it each time. I think in response to kind of that, like early creators maybe don't need a manager. Somebody asked, but could it lead to more efficient growth? Or like, could having the way what this says after it gets cut off is, could having a manager with social media expertise provide valuable guidance to creators in the early stages of their careers?
I think definitely, like I said, some of my creators I've signed really small. My initial answer was you don't need a manager early on, right? But if you're willing to say, hey, and I think it's going to become more common actually as being a creator becomes more of a career. If you're 16 and you say, I'm going to be a creator no matter what, this is all I want to do, right? So it's kind of like being a musician almost, right? It's like Billie Eilish got signed when she was like 12. She knew she was going to be a musician and that was it. So she didn't care if she had to give away 40% of her revenue her whole career because it helped her make, $100 million, right? So if you're committed to saying, I'm going to be a creator one way or another, and you're willing to give up X percent of your revenue from the beginning, that's a decision that I think you just have to make for yourself. But I definitely have seen it work for certain creators, especially if you're a personality creator. And, it's much more about building a business around you, i.e., like the D'Amelios or someone, right? They're the type of creators that no matter how early on they got a manager, they're just trying to put their face in as many positions as possible. So having someone who can focus on the business side can be helpful. To be honest, I think it's just a very specific creator. It's going to be a creator specific answer. Some creators can benefit a lot from having a manager early on. Some, it would probably only deter them. It depends on what you need specifically.
Yeah, for sure. There was another one that was sort of similar to that. If you're getting a couple of deals a month coming to you, but if you had a manager to do the work and seek out clients and start an email list, would that be a good point to bring on a manager? And like just kind of distilling like what David and Colleen have said all along, is that it's a financial decision, it's a commitment. And so you really want to weigh, like, are you going to get more out of having a manager than you're giving up? Like if you're getting 1 to 2 brand deals and you're making a certain amount per month, are you going to increase your revenue potential by more than what you're going to be paying the manager by bringing them on? And I'm not a real numbers person, but I'm sure there's somebody out there who sells like a digital template for a spreadsheet that you could use to work through that and figure it out. All right, I like this one. It was posted in the chat really early on, so it's not in the question box, but it says, I'm new and I'm still trying to build up my content, and I don't have a lot of experience working with brands, and I tend to freeze when somebody asks me what my pricing is. So this is somebody who's lacking confidence in sharing like rates with brands. What's your advice for Nancy?
Colleen, you want to take this one?
Yeah. I mean, this is your job, and if it's not already, you should be treating it as though it will be. So I would say it's obviously very scary, but I think it's really, really important to just unapologetically advocate for yourself. Um, if you do have to shoot out the first number, then obviously always aim higher. Um, they've heard it all, I would say. Like brands have heard the most insane quotes. They've heard quotes that are way lower than what they've expected, and then the contract gets signed later that day because of it. So whatever you throw out there is not going to be the craziest thing they've ever heard. The worst that can happen is they don't want to work with you. Usually you can scale down from there and come to an agreeable price point. But yeah, I would say just take a deep breath and, be prepared to back it up, obviously, with why that's the asking price. But yeah, this is your job, and part of any job is advocating for yourself.
I think that's a perfect answer, Colleen. The only thing I would add is you're new, right? Like you're just starting out. So what's the worst that can happen? They say no and you don't get the deal. Well, you're new. You weren't planning on getting the deal anyway, right? This isn't life or death for you. But getting that experience of understanding, hey, well, I pitched them at this much and they said you're crazy. Well, next time I'll pitch at this much. It's like you got to start somewhere. And I think, like Colleen said, being confident and trying to back it up is what matters. But you're new, so the worst case is you lose a deal that you didn't need. Best case, you get a deal you didn't expect. So just go for it.
Awesome. I think we've sort of entered the last couple of questions here that I'm either not sure are super relevant or are basically repeats of things we've already done. This one is about multi-language content production. I would say, I don't know if you guys have any experience international or multi-language that you want to share, but my only advice for that is find a manager who specializes in that.
I'll take this one. I work with a client named Enisel Mason, who does luxury home tours. And he has a very, very diverse audience because luxury homes are an international thing. All over the world, people love seeing this stuff. So he gets a lot of potential offers for multi-language services. And to be honest, it really is going to depend on the creator. I would really ask for what examples this company can show you of other channels that they've successfully done it with, and especially look at the quality of that channel. So it's like, oh, we took this channel and we made it in Spanish and they're making all this money. Okay, but can you send me the channel? Because you don't want to go and it's just like weird AI dubs and like the voice is doing this and the sound is like doesn't even match up at all. You don't want to lower the quality of your own content for a couple of bucks. So I would just make sure you're working with really reputable translators. And that's a really specific question, I feel like, but it actually, I think, is going to be more and more common as digital creation only gets bigger. So I think it actually might be helpful to more people than you think.
We have a follow-up. The creator who asked this question is here and asked, when do you, David, suggest a creator start doing multiple language channels?
Oh, I do not. Only do it if an agency comes to you, because these agencies, their whole job is identifying creators that are going to do well multi-language. The only other exception is if half your comments are, when are you going to do multi-language? It's a huge undertaking. It's a bunch of time. It takes a while to make money. Don't spend your time doing this without a really good reason, or if an agency comes to you and says, hey, here's XYZ reason why it's going to be great for you specifically.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I'll take this one because I think it speaks to the element of fit, which is maybe not exactly what we've touched on previously. So we've talked about green flags and red flags, like what to look for in agencies, managers, and creators. But do you have any tips about like finding the match and making sure that the person is not just a good manager, but the right manager for you?
I would say, unfortunately, even with a large amount of assessment before signing on with someone, it still might be trial and error. I think it's like in that way, it's similar to a therapist, like we've said. Yeah, there might be some trial and error. Again, assessing like what kind of managers similar creators to you have, I think is a really valuable tool. And also, if you have other friends or just peers in like the creator space, you can always ask them like what your current manager that you're with, how are things going? What do you like about them? What works for you guys? And if they're making similar content to you or have a similar demographic, then that can be really insightful as to what you should look for as well. But ultimately, I think it should just be a really good partnership. It should feel good in the first few conversations. You should feel their genuine interest in your growth, and their like commitment to your channel and your style. They should have a good understanding of who you are, of the content you make. They should have ideas for you to grow already. All of those things usually are signs of a really good fit.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And simply put, honestly, there are two elements to it. There's the business side. Do they have other reputable clients? That makes sense. Can they tell you exactly about your content and reasons why they think they can make more money? And two, just if the vibes are good. Like, you're going to talk to this person a lot if you have a good manager over the course of your career. If you can't talk to this person for 20, 30 minutes and feel comfortable and open, it's probably going to be a bad fit eventually. So I would just say make sure that you have something in common with this person that's going to allow you to connect, because business is going to be good and it's going to be bad. But you're going to need to trust this person, and being able to be open with them is really important.
Excellent. This is a very long question, so it's going to get cut off. But the gist of it is, I think I need an accountant and a lawyer, but I'm not sure about a manager. Do managers do things that accountants and lawyers do, or are those separate functions?
Totally separate. To be honest, I think if you are confident you need an accountant and a lawyer, you definitely need a manager, especially if you're overthinking the business side, because that's literally what you're paying this person to do. You're saying, hey, I'm making X amount of money. You have to be making that much money, because why else would you need an accountant or a lawyer, right? Second, you probably have other business opportunities because you're overthinking the business side. So you're going to need someone to say, hey, you focus on creating. I'm going to organize the business. I'm going to talk with your lawyer and make sure you're getting the best terms. I'm going to talk with your accounting to make sure we're saving money whenever possible. Your invoices are going out at the right time. We're chasing all of the money. The whole point of a manager is so that you're not overthinking the business side, and that you're focusing, as being the creator, on creating. That is the real goal of what they're supposed to do. Also, accountants are not going to be experts in things like negotiations for multi-language contracts, for example. That's not what accountants do. Lawyers are really good at understanding when, your likeness is being sold for less than it should on market value, but they're not going to be very good at pitching you and understanding why your TikTok videos are the best in their class, because there's a trend showing that marshmallow videos are increasing. That's not what lawyers do, right? Managers sit in that small understanding of understanding what your business is specifically, why your content's good, and kind of connecting the dots and allowing you to grow. So that's a little jumbled way of saying that a good manager will stop you from overthinking your business decisions.
Excellent. I just want to pause and acknowledge that we have answered over 20 live questions asked by creators here today. So thank you to all of you who took the time to write down your questions and to join us today. We do have just about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure, was there anything that you guys wanted to touch on or talk about that you had planned to talk about today that you did not get a chance or did not come up organically? Just allow a couple of minutes here for anything maybe that's top of mind.
I think so much did come up organically, actually. I don't think we're left with a ton of stuff that we didn't get to talk about, which is great.
Perfect. Well, if there are any creators who have last minute questions and you guys want to drop something in, there are just a couple more hiding in the queue here, but they're very sort of general ones, like we've definitely talked about, why it's important to have a manager, how you guys work with creators, common burdens that a manager can free of the shoulders of creators when hiring them. I love that phrasing of what a manager can do for creators. If you guys want to sort of use this as like a last minute elevator pitch, maybe like if somebody here was excited about what you guys had to say and they might be interested in working with you at 9-4, you know, how can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, just shoot us an email. If it's not already available, Isabel can share both of our emails, and on our website, it's pretty easy to find how you can contact us. But more than anything, I would just say I appreciate you guys being here and all of your questions. I think they were excellent. And I think the fact that you're even invested in something like this shows that, you know, you're really trying to take this seriously. And I think that's like a great first step. But all that really matters in this business is making the best content you can, being passionate about what you do, and, you know, and having the right strategy long term. And I just wanted to really thank you for the questions and your time. And it's very meaningful to me. So I love doing this.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you guys so much for being here. I think, like David said, you're all already on the right track to finding a great manager, a great partnership in that way just by being here. So hopefully, you know, our answers provided some valuable insight as well.
Definitely. Where I hate to end on a gossipy note, we have such a positive, happy ending here, and we got this one last question in response to my call for any last questions. Have you ever had to drop a creator client, and why? Be on your best behavior out there, guys.
I can take this one really quick. Yeah, I mean, not everything works out, you know. I think why is totally dependent on the relationship. But I mean, at the end of the day, all of your clients will not be with you forever. And I think it's more about finding the relationship that works best for the creator. And sometimes it's with us and sometimes it's not. And I think that's just okay. I think if you really care about the creator and their goals, dropping a client is not something that's going to come up often. Maybe you guys can mutually understand that it just didn't work out, and that's totally fine. It's all about wanting the best thing for each other. And I think a good manager won't have an issue if you say, hey, we gave it a shot and it didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying earlier about maybe giving it a trial run, 90 days or 6 months to see if it works out and it's a good fit. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this juicy reason that somebody, you know, it didn't work out. Just go in a different business direction. Nobody tell Scooter Braun I said that. If anybody was following that drama. Well, to just wrap it up on a really amazing positive note, thank you guys so much for your time and your insights today. I personally learned a lot, and I can tell that everybody who was here in the chat learned a lot. And this is like one of the first times I think that we've really been able to like thoroughly answer all the questions that were asked. So I think that was such a great use of our time here, and I will continue. I'll drop a few more links in the chat. Come join us in the community if you want to have access to more events like this, or if you want, you know, more connections to talk to managers. We'll also share David and Colleen's information. I dropped the links above a little bit ago, but here it is again. There's their website. You can find how to contact them. This chat will stay alive. So when we stop streaming live here, the chat will live on. You guys can, you know, ask more questions, and I can drop you some more links or point you in the right direction for those. The replay will be available immediately once we are done streaming live, and we also post them on YouTube usually in a couple of days after. So everybody drop some claps in the chat and say thank you to David and Colleen. And I hope that I will see you all again on December 5th. We are going to have a creator attorney to talk legal stuff for creators. So stay tuned for announcements about that. You're the first to hear it here. So thank you again. And that's it for us.
Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Bye.